It's no secret that I'm known for my evidence-based approach to diversity and inclusion. I'm going to tell you why this is so important for you, especially when you make a mistake. I'm Dr. Jonathan Ashong-Lamptey, and I'm on a mission to help 1 million people like you to make your workplace more inclusive. Get your pen and paper ready because I'm going to give you 3 reasons why using an evidence-based approach to diversity and inclusion is essential. Also, make sure you stick around to the end of the show because I've got some great news that I want to share with you. It should come as no surprise, given my background, that I like using an evidence-based approach. I used to be an auditor, and I later spent years doing a PhD. But not everyone's on the same page. Remember at school, there was always someone who thought they knew everything, and everyone believed them. I can picture this person in my mind right now. And I bet you can too. Someone who always had a story. Someone who always knew better. For me, people like this nearly always had an older sibling. There was one person I remember from school who would say, "My brother said this and my brother said that," which meant that we were all expected to believe whatever they said. Thinking about this person from my childhood brings me to the first reason why an evidence-based approach to diversity and inclusion is essential. And that is, you don't have to rely on myths, urban legends, or other stories. You can rely on the facts, or the closest thing to the facts. Last year, I was invited to a roundtable talk, and the person chairing the meeting asked me to provide some anecdotes about some of the challenges experienced by minority ethnic individuals within the workplace. I said to him, I don't need to provide anecdotes because I've got evidence. I've got the research. I was talking about research that I've generated myself, but I was also talking about research that's conducted by other people. Using research means I'm not relying on stories or opinions or received knowledge. Here, we apply rigorous methods with a pragmatic approach, but also with a human touch. This is why stories and anecdotes have their place when we need them to illustrate the facts. But an evidence-based approach means that any opinions need to be justified, they need to be explained, and they need to be critically assessed. Now, the truth is, I like developing theories as much as anyone. At the LSE, we had it drilled into us that we were expected to develop theory. Now, that's all well and good, but we also have to gather evidence to support that theory. And that's what you should be doing in your organization. If you think there are no minority ethnic people in senior leadership roles, check for yourself if you can. If you notice that Asian women are pushed towards back office roles and discouraged from client-facing roles, check for yourself if you can. If you hear that people over 50 get managed out of the business, check for yourself if you can. Now, this may mean you or someone in your organization or your resource group, but you really need to get a sense of what is happening in your organization. This is the beginning of your own evidence-based approach. The second reason why an evidence-based approach to diversity and inclusion is essential is that it supports you when you're wrong. Once upon a time, people thought that the world was flat. People thought that the earth was the center of the universe. People thought that thunder were the gods being angry. Now, even when presented with new evidence, some people cling to these things as truths. They stick to a position instead of sticking to a principle. This makes it hard to change your mind when you're shown to be wrong, especially when your ego is involved. That's why I like an evidence-based approach, because it involves sticking to a principle. And that means that if something I believe now is shown to be incorrect or incomplete in the future because of new evidence, then I get to change my mind because of my commitment to the principle. An evidence-based approach allows you to change your mind and develop your strategy with what works, not with what you said last year. Before we move on to the next point, I want to talk about the importance of sharing. If you hear anything that you find interesting, then please share it with one other person that you think would find it useful. If you're finding this for the first time, make sure you check out the show notes. You can access these wherever you're listening to the podcast. The show notes have got details of all the reports and all the resources mentioned in the show. I've put this together for you so that you can go deeper into anything we discuss here. Now let's get back to talking about an evidence-based approach. So we've talked about how an evidence-based approach helps you to avoid storytelling, and it also helps you when you're wrong. The third and final reason why an evidence-based approach to diversity and inclusion is essential is that it allows you to develop high standards. Over the past few minutes, I've talked about that kid from your school who thought they knew everything and they were a source of wisdom. I've talked about how if you think there's an inclusion problem, someone should check it out. These are the starting points, but they're not the end goal. The way you collect evidence can start off being quite crude. That's when you've got nothing. But it does need to improve over time to ensure that the quality of the data and the evidence is appropriate. When you have nothing, bootstrap any way you can. This often raises awareness in organizations. But when you've got some basic observations, you need to get more sophisticated, using rigorous methods that stand up to scrutiny, because it will be scrutinized. As a researcher from the LSE, our standards are world class. The LSE talk about their standards almost as much as I talk about my PhD, because it genuinely matters. And not all research is created equal. There are so many studies produced by individuals, produced by organizations that I don't discuss on here because the methods leave much to be desired. The more you rely on an evidence-based approach in your inclusion journey, the more relevant those standards will be for you. So before I wrap this up, I want to share some of my good news. I'm going to be meeting with some of the leading researchers in the world when it comes to employee resource groups. I really wanted to get as many of them as I could together in a single room. I've pushed for it, and it's going to happen at the Academy of Management Conference in Boston in August 2019. If you're going to be in Boston at that time or you live near there, it would be great to connect, because I'm also going to be doing a special feature series around this event and the researchers. And I've been trying to do this for years, so I'm so happy that it's happening now. So make sure you keep listening to the show to hear more updates. So let's wrap this up. What are the key messages here? An evidence-based approach to diversity and inclusion is essential because 1, you don't have to rely on ambiguous stories. 2, it allows you to be wrong and change your mind. And 3, it helps you to raise your standards. So what do you think? Are you using an evidence-based approach? If not, why not? Get in touch or leave a message. I would love to hear from you. If you've learned something from today's show, you should sign up to our insider list. It's free and you can stay ahead of the pack and get the best of everything we produce. Thanks for listening, and I will see you in the next episode.